Saint Arsenius of the desert, Arseniy Veliki, said that we must look to ourselves and be sober. No, he's not talking about drinking, he's talking about a way of life. To be sober and to be aware of ourselves. Now that's the important thing, is to be aware of ourselves. Who are we? Are we what we want to be? In most cases, no. And I think the reason is that we give up. We give up too easily and things become difficult. We think, well, I can't possibly do that. We mustn't. We have to do what we can't do. And what I mean is we're not performing. God's watching us and he sees that we're trying. If we try, he accepts that. He doesn't accept the result. He accepts the fact that we're trying. And he sees that and he comes to our aid and we start to do things that we couldn't do before. I'm thinking about fasting at the moment because we're coming up to the Great Fast, the Apostles' Fast, and we're going to have to make decisions. Now, if we have families that are not Orthodox, that's a different issue, all right, nothing to do with the talk tonight. But if we are in an Orthodox environment, then there's no excuse. There shouldn't be an excuse. In fact, the thought of an excuse is terrible, because then we're not doing what we're meant to be doing. We're not being our true selves. You might say, well, it's not really me anyway. Well, it is. Who will give us back this present time? As St. Arsenius says. You can't go back. What you've missed, you've missed. And that is a judgment. You can't go back. And do we know what we want? In many cases we don't. And St. Arsenius used to say, Arsenius, why are you here? He's talking about in the desert fathers, he was a desert father. Why are you here? And the answer, of course, is because that's where he was called to be. You have to do what you have to do. You can't do something which is artificial. You can't do something that somebody else tells you to do. It doesn't work like that. It's between you and God. It's very, very personal. But we are, we are what we are, and we sort of give up very easily. And St. Arsenius says, walk the King's Highway, which is a straight road. In fact, it was interesting that where I lived as a child, a road that went up a hill, steep hill, was called King's Highway. So that was rather pertinent to me when I read that. King's Highway. Stay on the straight path. Don't come off the path. Don't go to the left. Don't go to the right, but go straight ahead. Understanding that it's very little effort on our part to stay on the road. It's not a lot. In fact, it's bad if you do have a lot of effort, because you end up wearing yourself out. And Saint Abdorotheus said when he was a young boy, he was learning to read, that he got obsessed with reading, and he would read all the time. When he was eating, he couldn't read in the bath, but everything he did was reading. He got to such an extent that he made himself ill, trying to do too much, trying to achieve too much. Well, we probably know that from our own children. We expect them to achieve sometimes that they can't achieve, but we can't face the fact that they might not be able to, because it reflects on us, on our intelligence, and on our parenting. But this is not important. Important is faith and trying something for God and not for oneself. So how do we keep self out of it? I want to say that people say, well, I can't make any progress. It doesn't seem to work. I've tried spiritual life, I've tried things. But St. Arsenius says, give blood and receive spirit. Now that's not masochism. Give blood and receive spirit. So we make the effort spiritually, and God gives us the grace to continue, to stay on the road. Walk the King's Highway and count the miles. And St. Basil says that the heart of the middle path. This is the stay in the center of the road. Spiritually, that is the heart of virtues. So we think, right, what do I have to do? I have to have virtues. I don't recommend them personally, but that's something we have to do. The fathers tell that that's what we need to do. But to have those virtues is difficult because we do it for the wrong reason. Are we doing it for the right reason? Are we doing something to please God, or are we doing something to please ourselves? To please ourselves of always having to succeed. And we know that. We know that in daily life we're trying to do things to please people. And sometimes it's not what we should be doing. We should be following the middle path, which is not to upset people, not to disturb them. That's far more important than trying to please them. In fact, trying to please them ends up being terrible. I remember there's a cartoon in Punch magazine. Punch was a British, well, it's not crocodile, I wouldn't say it was called, but it was that kind of thing. And it's very, well, it's strange actually, but in it's a picture of a vicar, an Anglican vicar, sitting at the table with a young priest, a young vicar, and his wife and whatever, and he looks at the young. They're called a curate, or that's what they're called, the first step, and he looks at him. He says, "Mr. Curate," he says, "is that egg bad?" He's eating the boiled egg. He says, "Oh no, my lord. Parts of it are actually quite tasty." That's actually, it's very British humour, that sort of thing. Obsequiousness. I don't know what that is in Russian. I haven't bothered to look it up. I'm sorry, I was too lazy to look it up.
What's the word?
Obsequious.
Obsequious.
Trying to be pleasing when it's, you know. You must have, well, you probably, as ladies, you didn't come across it, but boys would have come across this at school. Somebody trying to get in favour with the teacher or something.
Kiss up. Kiss up.
Oh, kiss up. Yes, yeah, yes.
Curry favour.
Curry favour. Yeah, curry favour. Now, why do we talk about that? I forgot what I'm going to talk about now. Give blood and receive spirit. Walk the King's highway. Count the miles. Stay in the middle of the road. That's very important for virtues. That because, you know, what's the difference between being brave and being foolhardy? Where's the virtue there? Yeah. In other words, you can't always do that. And you know, am I friendly to somebody because I want something? That's human nature. But you know, I'm not saying you're not friendly in general, but that could be another reason. Danger of working too hard. Hey, that's a good relief, isn't it, for us actually? Another one is fasting. We've got the Apostles' Fast coming up, Christmas fast, Nativity fast coming, and we should be following that. It's difficult enough to follow the weekday fast, Wednesday. How many people fast properly on Wednesdays? There's always some reason why you can't, but that's the way it is. So including me, I'm not the exception to that. My excuse is that I need the energy, which is probably true. I was a bit shocked actually at how weak I was, and then I thought, well, if I'm weak, I can't serve, so I better have a good meal, live it up. No, I'm joking, but you know what I mean. It's we have to do things by measure, because pride is always there. It's our pride that drives us to keep the fast. We'll do it. I can do it. Wednesday fast, no, dairy. Friday fast, even more so. So what are we going to do when it comes to the fast? 6 weeks. Can we keep that fast? I think we can, but we have to understand that can only be kept through humility. It cannot be kept through I did it. It doesn't work like that. Well, admittedly, it doesn't work. You know, a bit of disappointment. It's like somebody asking me to get. We have a fast every Wednesday and Friday, and somebody asked me to give them a blessing to fast, and I said, "What for?" "Well, I'd like to." "Well, no, you can't. You're not allowed to like to go fasting." I says, "We're not dieting. It's not diet. Why are we doing it? We're doing it to try and curb our passions." This is a sticky word that I don't like to use, but we have to understand that. We have excess on one side and defect on the other. And we have to be somewhere in the middle. I don't know what that is. But when we start practicing these things, then we will realize, that there's lots of things that we can learn. So I've got down here cowardice and foolishness. In between, and then there's humility, and what's the opposite of humility? Arrogance. All these things are there. They should not stop us from enjoying life, but they're there. And sometimes we suffer from people insulting us because of our vain glory. I am so special that I cannot be criticized, cannot be corrected. I think is much more powerful. So these are the things. It's not that simple. Anyway, Saint Arsenius mentions. Can I give that to you? That evil, as we know it, does not have an entity. It's not an entity in itself. It does not exist on itself. It does not exist by itself. And it's interesting because I just tonight came across a book on yogis, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Where a young man, Greek boy, got interested in yoga, and to the degree that he spent nearly 20 years practicing, and he got very good at it. So he decided, inevitable, go to India. And he went to the Holy Mountain first to get a blessing, and they said no. Well, that's not going to stop him because he's determined to go to India. So he went to India. He lived there, and it was a pretty rough life. In fact, one of the monks there said, "They don't go there; they'll eat you alive." Well, they almost did, but not quite. Anyway, the thing is that he went to a Punjab. What is it?
Punjabi?
No. Puja. There's one. It's a sort of ceremony. And he went to this ceremony in eastern and east part of India, Allahabad, and as he was leaving, he got up, and he was friends with a Dutch yogi, and he was at the festival, the feast. It's a ritual, and they were worshipping the idols, bringing the idols out, and they were either kissing the feet of the chief yogi, or they were venerating the idols. And he didn't want to do that. He knew, because he'd brought up Orthodox, he knew he was doing wrong. He knew that he shouldn't be doing it, but he wouldn't. Well, I'm not going to venerate images, idols. I'm not going to venerate them, and I'll leave it at that. Well, anyway, he became friends with this Dutch yogi. This Dutch yogi was sitting there, and he was going to leave, so he went up to him and just tapped him on the leg, said, "See you soon." And at that moment he did that, something entered him. Now this is very frightening, because he entered him. As soon as it entered him, people began to move away. They couldn't stand next to him. And he thought, well, what's this about? So anyway, I've got to go home now. So he had to go across the railway, apparently, which was a very dangerous area for thieves and robbers and whatever. And then he saw a group of men coming after him. But he felt full of confidence, full of power. He said it was like a power. And he walked towards them, and when they got closer enough and saw his face, they ran away. So they didn't rob him. So what was it? And he had this power when he came back, left India, went to Greece, went to the Holy Mountain, and people wouldn't talk to him. Or if they did, they'd say hello, and then they'd go away as fast as they could. Well, I think, from what I can understand, is that his face gave away. He was demonized. He had a demon. St. Paisius knew him, and so he eventually exorcised this demon out of him. But the power that it gave him was enormous. Evil does not exist in itself, but it does it when it's attached to something. I think it's like fungi on a tree. You know, the bracket fungi? It lives on the tree, can't live off the tree. And I think this is how evil is. So we do something and we think, you know, this is really good what I'm doing, and we embrace evil. Now, tonight I found a book on a yogi. It's a book I would not recommend to anybody, actually. It's very, very depressing, very dark. And he taught, this is the same boy, he goes home, goes to Thessalonica, and they're going to be there for Pascha, and he goes to his home that where he used to live, and his parents are going to come later. So he's on his own in the house, totally alone. While he's in the house on his own, the environment changes. Everything seems to shut down, as though somebody switched the light off. Total darkness, and there's a bit of light in one corner of the room, but the main corner of the room is darkness. He said it was a black, like a fog, all-consuming, and he was fascinated by it. But he didn't go into it, fortunately. But it was getting, when he got close to it, he could hear voices shrieking and crying, but he couldn't see anybody. They were in this cloud, as it, well, I don't know what it's doing. Yet the opposite to that was light. And then he realized, of course, light, that's what created the world. In thy light we shall see light. We sing that as the liturgy. In thy light we see light. And Christ is the light of the world. So that's what the origin of light is. Evil has no body, let's put it that way. It doesn't have it, except when we accept it. We reach out to it like we're doing something really good for church, and somebody gets in the way, like flowers. I'm thinking, I'm not blaming anybody here. You're working on the flowers, and you really, you know, concentrate, and then somebody comes along and pulls them out or something, and you get angry. So your good deed of preparing the flowers is superseded by anger. So that attracts the evil. We have to be careful. We can upset people by the way we move. I said last week, it's to do with, we can upset people just by being around. It's not our fault necessarily, but I think we have to be aware of that it's so easy, especially when we're making an effort. If you're not making an effort, nothing will happen. Everything will be calm, peaceful. As soon as you start making an effort, but it's supported by God's love and grace, although we don't see it at first. So we say, right, I'm going to try this. I'm going to fast on a Wednesday and see what happens. That's fair enough, yeah. But don't do anything more, and don't have expectations. I think this is the most important thing. So the virtues, I'm sorry, tonight's a little bit sort of jumbled, muddled a bit. But this thing of evil really struck me, actually. So it doesn't exist on its own, but it's waiting to attach itself to you and I through virtues. This is the thing, we must understand that. We have to, in intelligence, think, okay, I'm doing something good, therefore I should be tempted. I expect to be. But I also expect to win with God's help, by God's grace. So don't be surprised that when you're trying to do something which is really good, that the things come to opposition, because they're meant to. That's the way it is, and we just carry on. But you see, our pride says, no, I have to whatever I do, I have to succeed in. Whatever I do, I have to succeed, rather than whatever I do, God bless. Cut walk dust. Cut walk dust. As God gives, that's the way it is. And we call that providence. But to live by it is very difficult, but not impossible. And we can walk the road, the King's Highway, without deviating, providing we have humility. But you cannot walk it without humility. Everything you do, especially for church, this is important. That's where we're attacked. They attack us. The demons attack our pride, how successful we are. Is it worth it? These are the questions that come, and we just have to say, God will. God wills. Dabudit vole toya. Thy will be done. Are there any questions?